Late yesterday afternoon, some intense localized heavy rainfall fell over the city of Wichita. A number of areas experienced some significant street flooding, especially in the area of Town West, was hit the hardest by the rains. We've got reports of rainfall over 4 inches in that area. And as a result, areas of Maple from West Street to 235 were closed down, and the Town West parking lot areas of that also flooded. The reason for the flooding in that area was that the intense rain that fell so quickly and the amounts overtaxed the drainage system there. The storm sewers are designed to convey certain amounts of water to a certain size storm, and enough rain fell that the system wasn't able to convey all the water at once, and it took some time for it to drain away. It's important to know that the City of Wichita has crews that maintain the storm sewer system year-round. We maintain over 1,200 linear feet, or over 1,200 miles of storm sewer pipe, over 60,000 stormwater structures, and in 2014, about 500,000 linear feet of storm pipe are cleaned. And so it's important to make sure that all of the infrastructure is functioning properly, so when we have these events, things work as efficiently as possible.
So Don, there was some talk last night that the pump station was shut down or something. Can you clarify what that was all about?
There are 2 pump stations in the area of Town West that serve the area. We were temporarily without power for a short period of time. We knew that the power outage was going to occur. It was related to some work that Westar Energy was doing. We were able to put one pump station on manual power and restart the other pump station. They were down for a short period of time. They did not make a significant contribution to the flooding. It's important to understand that had the pump stations not been there and functioning as they were, the flooding would have been a lot worse.
Can you describe what the pump station does?
The area of Town West is a low-lying area in a flat city, and so a lot of water drains to that area. And because it's low-lying and water follows the path of gravity, it's necessary to put in pump stations to push the water uphill, and that's why the pump stations are there.
So they pump water uphill? I mean, how does it? I'm sorry, I don't understand.
Right. The pump station is designed to collect water in a pit, and then a number of pumps push the water out through the stormwater utility into the big ditch or the river or wherever it's conveyed.
From the where it goes down and under the street.
Right.
Pumps it out. Okay, gotcha. Have you guys, and I know just a few weeks ago we had the same type of situation happen. Can you talk a little bit about how significant this rain was to cause that much flooding? You know, I know there are streets that flood all the time anytime it rains, but talk a little bit about how significant the amount of rain that fell in a short period of time caused all this.
Sure. Whenever we get intense rainfall across the city, there are a number of areas that flood. The reason the area of Town West, the flooding was to the level it was, is not only the amount of rain that fell, but how quickly it fell. We've got reports of over 4 inches within an hour and 15 minutes. But some of that rain, 3 inches could have fell in less than an hour. And so when you get that amount of rain in that short of a period of time, the existing system that's there becomes overtaxed. We also had a number of crews out on the streets. Anytime we have an event that causes street flooding, we dispatch stormwater crews to make sure that all of the storm drains are open, that things are flowing the best they can. And during yesterday's event, we had 6 crews out on the streets working the storm water system until it subsided.
Did you have to call them in, or were they already out there?
These were people that we already had on hand during the afternoon, during the day. However, we did have people working later than normal, paying overtime.
Don, you know about how deep it got in the Town West parking lot?
I don't have any information on how deep it was. I've seen the same pictures that you guys have. It looked like it was, 3/4 of the way up on a tire or something like that is kind of what I saw.
We had no injuries reported in that street flooding over there, did we?
None that the stormwater utility is aware of.
And
yeah.
Do you know approximately how many vehicles might have been flooded out? in the parking lot or nearby in the streets, just roughly?
Yeah, I do not. Stormwater Utility hasn't received any reports on that. I don't know if PD would have any information on that or not.
Sorry we were a little bit late. Just wondering, could you tell us some of the worst spots in Wichita? I think you guys sent out something on that yesterday. But.
Yeah, there's a number of spots, that are prone to flooding that we're aware of that we keep an eye on. Depending upon how much it rains and how fast and where, just about any area where we have drainage, it can become overtaxed. One of the areas that frequently floods, it's one of the worst areas that we're aware of, is the area of Bleckley from Douglas to Kellogg. We've looked at that area. We're aware of it. We've done some studies on what a construction project would look like and how much it would cost, but currently don't have the funding, and that's well down the road out in the future for Bleckley, as well as the others that we have on the list and prioritized as well.
And what is the city's plan to get funding to eventually be able to fix that, or is there a plan, or what have you guys been talking about?
There's two funding sources that fund the stormwater utility. We have some money in the operational budget to address smaller projects and more localized issues, and we prioritize those and do a number of those each year. For the larger projects like Bleckley, those are funded out of the CIP, and the money that goes into that is tied directly to the stormwater fee that each of us pay on the water bill each month. And those fees are set, and so we do have a set amount of funding that's limited. And for now, we're following those plans and prioritizing those accordingly. In terms of making any large, significant improvements, that's going to occur over time, and they will be years out in the future.
If the sales tax would have passed last year, would we be working on some fixes that we're not maybe currently working on anyways?
The stormwater improvements were not part of the sales tax conversation.
How, I'm sorry, Lauren, go ahead.
Sorry, kind of tagging off on her stuff. We know that there are certain areas of the city that are prone to flooding. You said it yourself. What are the reasons? Why are those areas prone to flooding as opposed to some other areas? What are the problems there?
Well, the issue is the city of Wichita lies in a relatively flat area. And even though it's flat, there are low-lying areas within the flat area. And water drains to the lowest area. And that's where you have the most amount of flooding. Those areas that flood the most frequent and the worst are the lowest lying areas because that's where the water drains to.
And you talked about fixing, so what are the fixes for that?
Well, the fixes, we've looked at a number of areas. We've done the studies. We know what the scope of the construction project would look like. We've got some costs for some of those projects. Many of them are in the tens of millions of dollars, and we have to prioritize them according to the level of funding that we have. Now, one of the things that we're looking at doing is a cost of service analysis to see how our current charges are spread over our customer base, to see if there's any opportunities to improve the distribution of those fees and collect additional revenues and plan accordingly. But right now, we're in the discussion phase on that, in the planning phase.
Well, what exactly would that look like? Are we talking about digging more ditches, putting in more pumps, bigger sewer system?
It could mean upgrading existing systems with larger pipes as development continues. Some of our older developments were right-sized at the time for different size storms. One of the things that we can do as we move forward is plan for more significant events and put in larger pipes, larger structures, more structures, that type of thing.
We had some people ask about the big ditch, and they were saying, I thought the big ditch was supposed to keep Wichita from flooding. Can you talk a little bit about how the big ditch works with, some of the problems that we saw last night, why they don't go together?
Right. The big ditch is designed to keep the Ark River from flooding Wichita. The localized flooding that we have within the confines of the city outside of the big ditch, the big ditch doesn't affect that.
Don, is there any plans in the immediate or long distance future to expand the drains around town west to handle the rain we got yesterday that overwhelmed it?
We don't have any plans that I know of to do anything different than what we're doing at Town West right now. We'll have to look at that area as we look at other areas across the city and prioritize accordingly. if you want to talk after this about, some of the areas that we're aware of, that we have some things lined out, we can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Has Town West ever had that happen before? Like that's significant?
We were talking about that this morning, and some folks in Stormwater with some institutional knowledge were talking about that. And in 1993, and then again in 1995, we had some significant events where they remembered the water being that high in Town West.
But that was before the pumps were put in?
No, the pump stations were running
They were running.
in 93 and 95, yeah.